And then the second thing, it's interesting, is you think about when you have children when they're little, the parents are in charge, right? They control everything, especially a really small child. You decide when they eat, what clothes they wear, what time they go to bed. I mean, everything is sort of controlled by the parent. Well, as the child moves into those teenage years, the teen starts to want to take some of that control. They want to be able to manage their life to a certain extent. And one of the most common places of conflict is the pull between the parent being willing to give up some of that control and the teenager taking over some of that control. And that's a source of conflict. And I always encourage parents to think in terms of, it's shifting the perspective from one of trying to control what's going on to being more of a coach and trying to empower the teen to make the right choice, for example, as opposed to trying to control the choice. And so it's a different perspective, and you have to approach it a little bit differently as they move in. But a lot of times there's a lot of conflict, and it's all around who's in charge, right? Who's controlling what's going on here.
I think I have 2 adult children now, but I think anyone that had teens or is going to have teens, they get to an age, it seems, where, and it makes sense when you shed that light on that perspective of it, that it'd be more of a control shift, if you will, and rightfully so, right? They're no longer little kids, they're now teens, and they're having that independence. Is I guess it can be challenging to know when that time is to give up some of that control and use, like you said, encourage them to, or empower them to make decisions. But I wonder if that can be challenging in a way of like not coming off as condescending or hitting them the wrong way.
Right. And it's another reason why I like the analogy of a journey and the hero's 2 journeys, because it is a journey in that every day you're confronted with new circumstances and situations that you weren't confronted with before. I mean, you're, for example, and if you've got 2 children, when your oldest child was 16, that was the first time you ever had a 16-year-old, right? And the first time you dealt with all of those circumstances. Well, when the second child comes along, you've got a little bit more experience, and you can, maybe you have a different perspective on it as that second child comes along. But the point is that it's an ever evolving process. And as a parent, we hopefully are continuing to grow and develop and learn as we go along as well. But back to your question, okay, that control issue, I always argue to parents that, try to start to give up control earlier rather than later. And part of the reason is, I mean, eventually you want that teenager to be able to launch off into their life and be able to have a successful life, if you will. And part of that is contingent upon them being able to be responsible, them being able to be resourceful and make decisions and be thoughtful and to be resilient, to be able to get through a problem. But when they're teenagers and as they're in your home, that's the training ground, right? That's where they get a chance to practice all of those skills.